Hello my friends, I'm here at Flushing Meadows Park, which was the site of the 1964-65 World's Fair, which, as a Disney fan, everyone knows that one was the one that brought in a whole lot of innovations that eventually got brought over to the parks. But my first stop here is the Queen's Museum, which has an exhibit all about the World's Fair. I've been wanting to check this out forever, so I invite you to come along. Let's check this out. I'm not sure what these guys are called, but you might have noticed them in the opening shot. I just recognize them from Men in Black, and they have like a replica of these over in Universal Studios in Orlando. Meanwhile, they also have this giant globe. It looks like it got renovated or something in recent years. Maybe this whole park did. Saw a lot of reservations. But we're heading over this way to the Queen's Museum. Just got inside. It's beautiful and spacious in here. But I see what we want. It's right up there. The World's Fair collection. Let's head on. The building we're currently standing in is the New York City building and was erected for the 1939 and 40 fair. Huh. I didn't realize they had another fair here. Alright. Let's turn around here, and here's all the different things that they have. They have like little models of all the different pavilions that they had. I think that all told there was like 140 of them. Well, as a photographer, I really appreciate this this camera here that you could get. It looks really cool, like a standard 35mm camera. Wonder how you wind it. Is that the little thing in the front that flips out and helps you wind it? I don't know. I've never looked at cameras this old. There's a little thing here about General Motors Futurama, which featured some really wild designs. They have models of them here. Imagine they thought that we were going to be riding around in stuff that looked like this. I did find something I think y'all will be interested in. Abraham Lincoln. It's like a little bus that they have here. But when they were doing the audio tours, they would give you there was like a big spiel about Abraham Lincoln and Walt Disney. I think most Disney fans know that was like his favorite president. And so there was a lot of pains that they went through to get the audio animatronic for Abraham Lincoln as accurate as possible. Well, I found a rather large model of General Electric's pavilion. Can anybody guess what attraction that we now have in the Magic Kingdom was inside here? If you guessed the Carousel of Progress, you're right. This thing got shipped out to the fair from Disneyland, then shipped back to Disneyland, and then a few years later, where it's been for quite a while, over to the Magic Kingdom. And it was called Progress Land. So here's the last little bit of this exhibit, which is a model of the 64-65 World's Fair. And wow, it is fun to look at. So we are here currently in this building, the New York building, or this New York City building. There is apparently that spot where I was reminded of Men in Black is the New York State Pavilion. New York City had its own pavilion. Then there's the Unisphere in the middle there. And if we follow this along, right here, all the way down, there is Progress Land, aka the General Electric, the GE Pavilion. And then just across the way here, this is the Pepsi-Cola / UNICEF building where they had It's a Small World. Then we're going to go all the way around and up and out here. And this is the Illinois State Pavilion where they had the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, the craziest animatronic anyone's ever seen at the time. And then just across the way here, this is the Ford Motors Pavilion where the Ford Skyway was. So that was really cool to see, all the different artifacts. The model was my favorite part. Obviously, I don't know if I even snapped enough photos of it or took enough video. It was just a lot to take in. That World's Fair was gigantic. My gosh, 140 buildings, 110 restaurants. My goodness. Well, so now I'm walking around the park. I wanted to see what the sites of those 4 Disney-related buildings look like. And unfortunately, to my right, this is where the Ford Pavilion was. And it is currently now serving as a drive-in. That's right, this is it right here. The former site of the Ford Motor Pavilion. What a bummer. not see it used in any sort of way, because right across the street here, the Hall of Science is still there. Still, I think I saw one of the rockets even, then I saw that in the model. Let's walk around real quick. So what can we say about the Ford Motor Pavilion and the Skyway, the Ford Skyway that was built by Disney here? I think it was built by Bob Gurr, and this was kind of the first way people were getting moved, so to speak. Wink, wink. Yeah, it was kind of like a precursor to the omnimover, which obviously got used in many of the different Disney rides, especially the classic ones like Haunted Mansion, for instance. I think it was really first utilized in Adventures Through Inner Space. But yeah, the technology that they built here lived on until today. And there is a part, one of the scenes from the Magic Skyway, because guests would go into a Ford Mustang, and I think it was a debut of the Mustang as well. They had a big Mustang prominently on display. But the cool thing is that ride took you from the beginning of time and then to some sort of futuristic something or another. But in between, there was a scene with dinosaurs called the Primevil World, and you can still see that one at Disneyland, although I believe the original ones that were here are actually over in Tokyo on their railroad. So I'm here on the opposite road where we started from, and they have two of the three rockets that were here from the 65 World's Fair. No idea if those are renovated or original, but the Hall of Science still living strong here. Wow, I think that I'm gonna start walking over to where the Illinois Pavilion was. However, I'm pretty sure now that's like a tennis center, so that whole area has just kind of been taken over by new construction. So I'm walking right next to this massive building here, which is the National Tennis Center. However, I believe the Illinois Pavilion was a little bit further down here, and I don't expect to find much, but it's still nice to say that I was at the location. So if I've got my bearings right, the Illinois Pavilion would have actually sat somewhere around here. I think we're walking up on it, but we can talk about it a little bit. Obviously, the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln was a huge advance in animatronics. It was super serious. I think you can still see one of them, like one of the animatronics over at Hollywood Studios in that display, One Man's Dream. Unfortunately, there's a stadium here, but before Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, I think the quality of the audio animatronics was kind of reserved to like tiki rooms, so very simple stuff. One fun fact that I learned was that they asked that nobody take any photos, no flash photography, no photography please while going in there. So there's not that many photos. People actually listened to that back in the day, I guess, different times. But there aren't as many photos of the original animatronic out there. If you guys see one, I'm gonna look and try to put one up here, but if I don't have any luck, maybe you guys will have better luck and can let me know. So I double checked my maps, and it appears that this stadium and its loading docks are more or less in the location where the Illinois Pavilion was. Not that I was expecting to see anything like, I think originally in the pavilion they used a store that was a recreation of one of Lincoln's homes, and that looked pretty cool. It was originally, I think, for the attraction, what became Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. I think originally they were trying to do something with more presidents, more animatronics, but I think they had like time constraints and like all the work that went into just Lincoln. It couldn't be replicated to get more presidents involved. But that's why when Walt Disney passed away, his brother Roy took it upon himself to develop the Hall of Presidents over at Magic Kingdom, because that kind of was the original intention for Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. All right, so I'm taking a little chuso break here. Got some chusos down here. Very exciting stuff. But this park, it's massive. I can only imagine having been here when things were like swinging and well underway. It must have been so crazy to see. Now it's mostly like every space that you can fit like a pitch for soccer, that's what's there, and it's being utilized. Like, there is a lot of people here in this park. I can only imagine if they did something like they did back at the World's Fair in the 60s and did something like that now. Oh my gosh. Imagine, like, I can just imagine with the culture that we have now with like influencers and Instagram walls and how interconnected with social media everything is, how crazy it would be. Anyway, I'm gonna dig in here, take my little trousseau break, and then we're gonna head over to where the sites for the General Electric and PepsiCo Cola pavilions are. Is it PepsiCo or UNICEF? I think it's Pepsi Cola in conjunction with UNICEF, but it was mostly Pepsi Colas. Anyway, be right back. So after our trousseau break, we are here staring at what was once the Fountain of the Planets. I don't know if this actually goes at any certain point, but right across from there, at this field, this is where the General Electric Progress Land Pavilion was. Wow. And this was one of the first spots that had to post a wait time because the Carousel of Progress, which was in the pavilion, was so long that in between the years 64 and 65, they actually had to build like a queue with proper switchbacks and all of that. I decided to just take a seat here in the area where this pavilion would have been. It's crazy to think that like about 60 years ago, there was people waiting here and got to watch the Carousel of Progress for the first time. The first time that a lot of people, especially on the East Coast, would have seen an audio animatronic. Before that, we only had the Tiki Room, and they did do something in the style of the Tiki Room here. It was, I believe, the toucan and the parrot. And it was apparently a very strange show. You can actually listen to the audio. If you have that World's Fair box set, the audio is on there. I'm sure it's floating around the internet too if you want to yo-ho-ho it. But Marty Sklar wrote that, and apparently he did not like it. It was some strange, like, sketch between a toucan, a parrot, and a talking utility pole. So they borrowed the tech from Tiki Room to put that bit together. But notably, Paul Frees was of Ghost Host fame, was the voice of the French toucan, and then Wally Bogue, who does the voice of Jose, he was the Mexican parrot. I don't know who the guy who did the voice for the utility pole was, but it's still funny to see that was even a thing. I hadn't even heard of that until I did some research about this location. Now, obviously, the next two pavilions that we're at, this one here, and then the Pepsi-Cola one for It's a Small World, both feature songs from the Sherman Brothers, and that's always worth mentioning. Then, the other thing, besides, the four scenes that are in Carousel of Progress that we know, and obviously the last one is the one that's supposedly the most up-to-date. When it was at the pavilion here, it was only in the 60s, so that it was modern-day electrical improvements in the 60s, and I believe now, is it just the 90s? So they're about 30 years behind. That's something that definitely needs an update, that's for sure, because I think everything that's supposedly part of the future is now almost part of the past. Like, it's just all ubiquitous technology that we all use these days, especially video chat. But then after you would go through the four scenes, the audience would be moved to the second floor and they'd go see Progress City, a model of what Walt's idea of a city of the future would be, which was later translated into Epcot, and then Epcot didn't happen, and then they moved a part of that model over to the TTA, to the People Mover in Magic Kingdom. I really wish that there was a place that they could put the entire model out and for all to see. So around here somewhere, maybe this whole place until the corner, was the former site of the Pepsi-Cola Pavilion and the home of It's a Small World. Just kind of crazy to think about. So this is the site where not only did Raleigh Crump's Tower of the Four Winds exist and kind of served as like a little meeting place for a lot of guests coming to the fair, it was also where the song that is one of the most played, if not the most played songs in the world ever, It's a Small World, written by the Sherman Brothers. That's where it debuted. The boat ride concept was a thing that allowed for high capacity, high throughput, which was really good. So much so that I believe that Pirates of the Caribbean at one point was supposed to be a walking tour, but because they developed the boat system, they decided to switch over that ride and now we have the Pirates that we have today, which I don't think we would have gotten the same type of ride. It might have not lasted that long if Pirates did not have the capacity that it needed to kind of exist now with the crowds that we get. It's kind of the same with like the omnimover system and how Haunted Mansion probably wouldn't have survived that long if it was also the walking tour that it was initially supposed to be. There's one little note that I made for myself because I want to make sure I bring up everything. Of course, so the costumes was Alice Davis, who I'm sure most Disney fans know. Designs, Mark Davis. Raleigh Crump and Co., they developed kind of a, how do you want to call it, like a uniform way of manufacturing parts for both the animatronics over at Carousel of Progress and here at Small World, so that all the parts were interchangeable for the animatronics, because they were going to, especially in Small World, they were all going to be very similar, so they needed some sort of way to be able to produce them when they were getting them machined. So I just thought that was an interesting thing that like just infrastructurally there were improvements being made, not just on the technological side, not just in the research side of developing all this stuff, but like all of that infrastructure type of stuff that would help with having all these parks and all of that sort of maintenance and stuff that needs to be done. All of that stuff gets a little bit easier because they do stuff like that. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Mary Blair, who is the one who decided on a lot of the color palettes and such, and beautiful designs that we see, especially like at Disneyland or at Disneyland Paris in the facade of the building. It's just iconically what it is. I couldn't imagine it being anything else. I made it back here by the Unisphere, and I just wanted to mention that this little area right here, their Swiss Pavilion, used to have a skyway that would go from about here to across and over there. And that same company, which isn't coming to me right now, this is just a fun random factoid, the same company is the one that would create the Skyride, not just for Disneyland, but also do the install that's over at Six Flags Great Adventure in 74. But random factoids aside, I think it's time to have a seat here on one of these comfy concrete benches right in front of the Unisphere, right here. And kind of, I don't know, it's reflect on the day. It's fun to take in the history, even though there wasn't too much to see. It's fun to know that it was here at one point. And my research was not comprehensive on this. You can go as deep as you want into one of these, the development of each of these pavilions, further out into the rest of the World's Fair. Like, there's a ton of info out there, and really it was hard to decide what to present here for this little video. But I wanted to bring you guys along, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if there's any fun stuff that you want to share that you know about the World's Fair and the 4 pavilions here that Disney worked on. But all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. I hope you go make your own adventure. Bye.